I'd love to hear as you populate the room, maybe you can call it out and I can repeat it back into the mic, or you could put the answer in the chat. What were some of these necessities by which you could not procure them during this time of pandemic, which started 3 years ago this very month? Go ahead and call out the things that you talked about. Soap. Difficult getting that soap, yes.
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper, that is a major one. Vaccine. Yeah. What other things? Sanity. Bottled water. Anything from online?
Human contact.
Human contact. Hugs. Hugs.
Baby dill pickles.
Baby dill pickles. They ran out at the store. At our house, it was the yeast. Everybody was making bread, right? Everybody was making bread. Masks, right? Fashioning things, making them. My mother-in-law made some out of fabric and sent them because you could not find them. Yeah. A sense of security, right? A sense of normalcy, a sense of community, all of these things. Well, this parable is a tough one again, and it made me think of if you were going on a hike with some friends and you all had your flashlights and you drifted off to sleep. And then as you were drifting and you woke up and it was before sunrise and you went to turn on your flashlights and 5 of the people, and maybe you didn't count yourself among them, but the flashlights wouldn't turn on and the lights weren't there and you couldn't see to make your way to the cliff where you would enjoy the sunrise. And guess what happens is the 5 who have the flashlights and their batteries say, tough luck. Feels like a little bit of a sorority hazing moment. By not only do you not get to go to the sunrise, but we're going to send you back, guess what, in the dark, back to the gas station 2 miles away, through the brambles and the thicket, so that you can somehow light your light. No, this is not how it works. This is not how community works. This is not what Matthew has been telling us in all of these chapters before this very moment. We hear from Matthew, do not store up for yourself treasures on earth. Wouldn't that be oil too? If you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me. We also remember the passage, do not worry about what you eat or drink or what you wear, surely not to matter what is in your oil lamp. This anxiety that we find, it's like an anxious dream of which we wake up and we find ourselves woefully unable to meet the moment. Is this what the kingdom of heaven is like? Is this it? Resting in our place of anxiety? We acknowledge that it had a lot to do where Matthew was writing in the generation after which Jesus had been killed and crucified, as they were trying to figure out what it meant to be community and what we each need in order to be ready to be in the spirit of community and ultimately to be with the God who, guess what? They thought that Jesus was coming any moment. And indeed, if that door was open, would your heart be ready to receive him? Not always so much about what you would have in your hands, but there is personal work that we do in order to ready ourselves for the kingdom of God. But I land with Nadia Bowles-Weber, who is a zesty interpreter of the Bible and a very well-known pastor with tattoo sleeves. She says this, the foolish bridesmaids weren't foolish because they didn't bring back up oil. They were foolish because instead of trusting that the light of Christ was enough to shine the way, they wasted all that time and energy and money trying to get their own because someone shamed them into thinking they could never approach the Lord with their lack. Rather than just trusting that the light of those around them and the light of the groom that was coming, by the way, with another light was enough, they assumed they had to provide their own. And then they were so consumed by the shame of not being enough, they busied themselves trying to fix it, so much so that they missed the wedding banquet. She continues, of course, the bridegroom said, I don't know you, because they hadn't come to him in their need and lack and want. But Jesus knows us not by our independence from him. Jesus knows us by our need of him, for which we should never be ashamed. They perhaps, not unlike us, mistakenly assumed that all God is interested in is our strength, our preparedness, our goodness, the amount of toilet paper we have in our garage, and whether or not we can jockey our way to a vaccination. What God really asks of us is to know our need for God. I wanted to share this story. At a former church, I did a weekly Bible study with participants. And one week in particular, I had learned about a transgender author and his interpretation of the particular text that we were going over. He talked about his unique perspective as a transitioning individual and how he was able to read the text differently based on the different life experience that he had had. I didn't know how this would go over with my older adult Bible study. Many of them did not know anyone who was LGBTQ or who was identifying as transgender or non-binary. And so there was a little bit of murmur, and I was surprised in the weeks to come, I got a call and I made a visit to a 95-year-old woman, a Bible study participant. I went to her senior residence, and I remember that beautiful day on the porch out in front of that place. And we sat down together, and I didn't know what we would be talking about, but soon she started and she said, "About that Bible study." And I thought, oh, here it comes. But she was always gentle. She was always gentle. And she said, "I am so thankful for that Bible study." Just continue to let it sit in my spirit. I got a call from my granddaughter that my great-grandson is transitioning. And I'm trying to remember to change that name of which I've known all the life. And I'm trying to figure out how to meet that love and to change that name and to get the right pronouns. And I seem so foolish sometimes because I can't always get them right. And I see the hurt or the confusion of my grandchildren as they try to navigate this. And I just think it's so important that, like that author in the book, that there are people that are thinking about these things and creating supportive communities of love. Thank you. I made sure she got the information for the book because she wanted to pass it on. Friends, how do we continue to pass on the love? So easily we could come to a place of interpretation that stoked our anxiety about who was in and out, who had the batteries, who was appropriate, who was not appropriate, who is enough and who is not enough. But I venture to say that as we gathered with the children at this table, I believe that each and every one of them was enough. I don't know how God is going to continue to call them in this life. I don't know how God is calling you to express yourself or who you will love or what it is that you will need. But I do know and hope that as we look at this text, we see the foolishness that comes in the voices that would say otherwise, that somehow you are not enough. Somehow God's light is not enough. Somehow your lack leaves you wanting. Friends, a few moments ago, I snuffed out the lights for those who ran out of oil. Can you imagine how many times trans and binary persons have been turned out from community, from the shaming of the voices they hear or that are inferred because they are not somehow enough? And how we, in our deep empathy, and I've heard this throughout our listening circle time and beyond, how much each of us knows the pain of feeling that we somehow might not be enough or might not be included, even right here at KC. Sometimes it's because our questions are too big or too taboo for a spiritual setting. Sometimes because when we're talking after coffee hour, we need to make sure we need to leave room in a circle so that we can all be in conversation. How do we make sure that all are seen and all are honored? If it is wise to turn out others and not share my light, then I don't want to be wise. And if we truly think about the life and spirit of Jesus' ministry, there are so many times in which people would point and call him the fool. So parables aren't always straightforward. I know that I want to be a part of a community that lends me light when I am lacking. And I want to be a part of a community that is not silent or stingy in the face of suffering. This Friday coming up, March 31st, is Transgender Day of Visibility. This day celebrates trans and non-binary people, raising awareness of discrimination faced by trans people worldwide. One of the slogans and hashtags is hashtag I am enough. It is a reminder of the pressure, the voices that trans and non-binary people face to conform, change, or prove their gender to others. This coming Wednesday night, Reverend Rachel Cornwell will be coming right here to the Carriage House to talk about her book, Daring Adventures, Helping Gender Diverse Kids and Their Families Thrive. She is a mother to a trans child and will share about her family's experience. I know that some in our very community have asked how we can be present to families today, especially in our post-COVID times. I pray post-COVID times as we continue to wrestle what it means. Meeting families where they are and staying tuned to what children and youth need today. I would love to see many of your familiar faces this Wednesday night. This is not just a conversation for parents of gender diverse children. As we know from my 95-year-old friend that day, this may be a part of your family sooner than you know it. This is a conversation for communities and for spiritual communities and those who follow the foolish Christ in a world that so can often be not accommodating, saying too bad for you, tough luck this time, turn back and find your own oil. It's true. I hear in this parable that I can't sit back and assume that others will always carry the weight for me. We each have our life's burdens we bear and work through. But maybe it is also true, recalling the Jesus who bore the weight of the cross, that there is room at our table for all. And it is not my job, foolish or wise, to presume otherwise. May we see and honor all the gifts that others bring as themselves, bearing light for the world alongside one another, for a day when no more would suffer, when all would eat their fill across this world, which by so many measures people lack necessities today, when all who are transitioning have supportive community.